we be live. How are you doing this Monday?
Good, good. Busy day though.
Same.
Arjun, how was your snowplow delivery? Good, good. It came on Friday and it's awesome. So
Oh, I thought
it's
it
a
came last Thursday when we recorded. Did it?
was it Thursday?
Yeah, it
Okay,
was
yeah,
Thursday.
Thursday. Yeah. Um it's awesome. Yeah, it's very cool. It's a like a electric golf cart, kind of. It's like a more like a souped up quad with a roll cage, but it can also put a snowplow in front of it. And I'm no longer pulling my utility trailer around with my wife's fancy SUV, and instead I'm using this gadget. So
That is excellent.
yeah. I spent almost 5 hours yesterday just cutting down trees
Oh,
and
geez.
yeah, well, my dad is running is slowing down, and a big thing that he used to do was cut wood and stack it and pile it and get set for the winter every year.
Yeah,
And he just kind of can't do that anymore. He's not able to chop wood and stuff. So I'm delivering him a trailer load of firewood to
that
get him through
is
the winter. So yeah,
that is
because I got a
absolutely
lot of
excellent.
trees. Do I have a lot of trees? So
Yeah,
um so I've okay.
that was
Do
an
we want to?
incomplete sentence.
Yeah, well, I'm so
It was the best of incomplete sentences.
okay. Never mind. You know what? I'll be fine. Yeah,
Those are words that never end well.
it'll be all right.
You
Okay,
just told the universe to hold your beer.
hold my beer. Everything's gonna be fine.
All right.
I got a list of things I'm
All
excited
right.
about.
Okay. I'm
Uh,
opening up my list of things.
all right.
And there's actually spacecraft on it. So I am
Um,
attending the Communicating Astronomy with the Public meeting this week virtually, but the conference itself is going on. It's a hybrid conference with the majority of the attendees are in person in France. So I told my entire household to basically pretend I don't exist so that I can exist on a French timeline, which means the conference just ended for the day.
yeah.
I am eating dinner as soon as we're done recording. And I have been up since 2 a.m. local. And I have drank so much coffee. So much coffee.
So you
Um,
might have to get up in the middle of this episode and go to the washroom a couple of
no,
times.
I'm just saying I might vibrate away or vibrate into an alternate dimension.
Okay. All right. Well, I've got the list of the things that I can think of, but
All right.
you can think of other things that I haven't thought of.
We'll just go back and forth like we did with books, except
Hmm.
this time with things that we're
Space
excited to
stuff.
see happen.
Okay, I'm ready.
All right. I am pressing record on video. There's the window. I am pressing record on audio. Audio is recording.
I'm also recording. Ready?
Yeah.
Okay. Astronomy Cast, episode 725, Looking Ahead This Summer. Welcome to Astronomy Cast, our weekly facts-based journey through the cosmos, where we help you understand not only what we know, but how we know what we know. I'm Fraser Cain. I'm the publisher of Universe Today. With me, as always, is Dr. Pamela Gay, a senior scientist for the Planetary Science Institute and the director of CosmoQuest. Hey, Pamela, how you doing?
I am doing well, and I am gearing up to spend my summer working on research, both science and social science. And I actually have a request for everyone out there listening to this podcast. If you could go to bit.ly/ capital AST, capital ECO. So basically, bit.ly asked eco for astronomy economics. I'm trying to understand what factors are preventing people from getting more engaged in astronomy than they already are, whether it be they're too busy, they have jobs, they have other hobbies, whatever it is that might be preventing you from fully engaging the way you'd like. I want to know. and I have a survey. So please go fill it out so that I can
Mhm.
find out more about all of you. Those links will be in our show notes, in the podcast summary, in the YouTube thing. Go click it. Go fill out my survey. Thank you.
Science.
Science. That was long.
Yeah. So this is, of course, our last episode of this season. And I should really remember what season we're in. 16, 17? I don't know.
17.
17. All right, 17. This is the last episode of season 17. We are about to begin our 2-month hiatus where we replenish our energy, work on a bunch of projects that require focused long-term attention, um, ability to travel, things like that.
Yeah.
So now, normally, Pamela refuses to think about the future. But today, on our final episode before hiatus, she's throwing out those rules. It's like the purge. Here's what we're excited about for the future, especially in the next couple of months until we return in September. And we will talk about it in a second, but it's time for a break. And we're back. All right, Pamela. First, thank you so much for allowing me to think about the future. Finally, I have so much that I think about, and you won't let me talk about it. Missions that are coming up. But you set some very firm constraints, which is really what we're looking at in the next couple of months. And so that's brutal,
Sorry.
but I'll see what I can do to get through this. But I'm always thinking about the future. Well, why don't you go first? Tell me what you're thinking about as we move into our summer hiatus.
Right now, I'm thinking that the second week of July, we die as science communicators. We
Yeah.
are potentially looking at Starliner, hopefully, maybe returning back to the planet Earth. They're
Mm-hmm.
doing lots and lots of testing of its fully discardable storage area, the trunk, that they can only do while on orbit. So they're staying up. They don't have a definitive time to return, but it's going to be in July because the spacecraft's going to expire. So we're going to have
So,
Go ahead.
well, so that's probably, yeah. So NASA published a status update on Friday afternoon where
Yeah.
they sort of talked about this situation and they said, okay, we said June 12th, then we said June 19th, then we said June 26th, then we said July 2nd, and now, you know what? Who knows? Who knows when this thing will come home? But they said they reassured everybody that the astronauts have enough supplies to be on the station for months. It's no big deal. And there was some just before we were recording this, there was some tentative improvements in the thruster situation on Starliner. So it might be that in fact they're going to get this resolved sooner than later. But and the schedule for the summer is wide open. They don't have a lot of missions coming to and from the International Space Station. So there's no gigantic drumbeat. You're right. The spacecraft will expire,
Yeah.
but only that it's like it'll be out of warranty. Only that it'll be beyond the expiry date. And come on, we've all eaten stuff out of the fridge after the expiry date.
On the regular, this is how I live my life
Yeah,
dangerously.
yeah, exactly.
And the problems that they're working on are related to the trunk, not the capsule. So there's concerns and they're getting data, but NASA is assuring everyone, Boeing is assuring everyone they can get back through the atmosphere, no concerns. It's the trunk that they're worried about, which gets
Right.
discarded and burned up in the atmosphere.
Yeah, yeah, the service module.
So, do you know what else is going on the second week of July, which is my personal bet for
Mm-hmm.
when Starliner's coming back?
The launch of Ariane 6. Ha!
So, what is flying on Ariane 6? No,
Oh,
this is their new rocket. I don't know what's flying on
yeah,
their new rocket. Shit, is
yeah. I
that
don't.
also the second week of
Yeah,
July?
first week of
Okay,
July.
first week of July. All right. So tell us
Yeah.
about Ariane 6. This is I know very little about this one.
Well, so I mean, we all watched excitedly as James Webb launched on an Ariane 5 rocket
Last
back
one.
Christmas, a year and a half ago, 2 years
Yeah.
ago, 2 years ago, more than 2 years ago. And this was, I think, the last Ariane 5 that Arianespace had around, and they've been sort of kicking this around because this was the plan, and James Webb got delayed. But Ariane has been working on their next generation launcher. This is the Ariane 6. And all of the bits and pieces have all been coming together at the spaceport in French Guiana, the Kourou spaceport, and they have been assembling it and putting everything together and doing tests. And the plan is to launch this on July 9th, 2024. And so, will it? They've completed a wet dress rehearsal. So, will it actually launch exactly on time on July 9th? Almost certainly not. That there is, you know, they will, like if a butterfly flaps in the Amazon rainforest, they will delay the launch to make sure
Yeah.
that the wing beats haven't caused any kind of upper air disturbance. But still, this is the plan. So a few things about it. It is liquid hydrogen, liquid oxygen engines for both stages. It has an improved version of the engine that the Ariane 5 was using. And it also has various sort of amounts of solid rocket boosters that they can attach to this. But it's very strange that Europe has put in all this energy and effort to build this new rocket system, and yet there really isn't any reusability plans when you think about how SpaceX is just running away with the market. And now they're testing Starship that could bring a fully reusable two-stage rocket into the market, and yet still we're not sort of seeing a big investment into reusable rocketry from Europe. So, but anyway, July 9th, we should see the Ariane 6 launch.
So we definitely die the second week of July, is what I am learning in terms of how much news we're going to have to tell.
Hmm.
Because July 12 is that potential Polaris dawn space tourist rich humans by flight
Right.
on Crew Dragon. And this is where they're looking to do the first commercial EVA out of a capsule, which is about as scary as it gets, in my personal opinion. Um, so
Yeah.
yeah, so
Yes.
like if you're on the International Space Station, you go into an airlock, you get suited up, you check everything out, you go into outer space after they suck all the air out of the airlock, you go back into the airlock, they put the air back in, you get undressed. Life is good. And if there's something wrong, you go into the airlock, they put the air back in, and your crewmates who have their fingers not in spacesuits fully dexterous come and rescue you. With
Right.
Polaris Dawn, we're back to the situation that we saw with Apollo and Gemini, where there is no airlock,
Right. They just evacuate the atmosphere from the capsule and then go to open it up to space and then go for a spacewalk.
which means that they're testing spacesuits on the entire crew
Yeah.
simultaneously.
Yeah.
And
And
these
these
are
are
not
new space.
professional astronauts.
No, but these are new spacesuits.
Uh
So we
huh.
got the reveal a couple of months ago of the new spacesuits that they're going to be using, and they look dramatically different than what NASA would use for an EVA. I mean, they look very similar to the existing spacesuits. When you see the NASA astronauts that are
Yeah.
flying on Crew Dragon, they're these kind of sleek, they almost look like race car
Superhero
suits, but with a
outfits.
super, yeah, with a helmet. And they have no oxygen tank. Instead, they're going to be using umbilicals to connect their oxygen to the spacecraft. And so it'll be, if you think about the Gemini mission when they were doing the spacewalks on that, and you've got the astronaut in this sort of fairly sleek suit attached with an umbilical to the spacecraft, that's what you're going to get.
Uh huh. With non
Yes.
professional astronauts.
Yes. I mean, they've been training. I mean, come on. How hard could it be?
I'm just, yeah, I have thoughts, I have feels, I have memories of the tank that they train in down in Huntsville and all the years of underwater training and everything astronauts go through. And I have feels.
Yeah,
But we can continue on. Do you know what
sure.
else is happening that week in
Well,
July?
you know what? I want to find out, but first we need another break. And we're back. What else is happening that July?
Have you heard of a little mission called Chandrayaan 3?
Yes.
It's July 14th, nominal launch.
Really?
Yeah.
I had no idea Chandrayaan-3 was launching this quickly.
Yeah, so Chandrayaan 3 should be going up July 14th, give or take. That's always the case. This is India's next foray into lunar exploration, where they're looking to achieve a soft landing. They have a next generation rover. They're hoping to rove this time. And so hopefully, we're about to see a new nation successfully soft landing and roving on the surface of the moon.
Oh, that's really cool. Speaking of the moon, we've got the sample return mission coming back from Chang'e 6, which landed in early June, collected its samples, deployed a rover that's main job was to take selfie images of the lander. Um, and it was able to extract a sample from several meters below the surface of the moon, which is really cool. And then it used an ascent capsule to fly or ascent module to fly up into orbit, docked with the return capsule, and then the return capsule has been on its way back to Earth, and it's going to be re-entering the Earth's atmosphere on June 25th. Now we're recording this on June 24th, but by the time you hear this, it will have already returned, and there's no changing the schedule on this. Like, well, this is the orbit that it's coming in, and so hopefully, people will, scientists will have access to samples from the far side of the moon for the first time, which is going to be pretty exciting.
Yeah, it's just this wild period that we're suddenly in that seems to have started 2 or 3 weeks ago, where the planet has gone spaceship crazy. And it's a good problem to have, but as a
Hmm.
space journalist, it's just sort of like, where did these all come from? And couldn't you have spaced yourselves out? Because, wow, it's
Yeah, yeah,
just remarkable and amazing. And then, of course, we're looking for a Starship 5 test launch sometime this summer.
yeah.
They're working on doing updates to the current Starship, having watched oblation is the word I'm going to choose to use occur.
Right.
I'm going to let you
Yeah.
explain that one as you giggle over there.
Well, right. So, I mean, for those of you who did watch the fourth launch of Starship, it was tremendous. It was quite an exciting time. Now, the first stage, one of its engines failed, and then, but it was still able to really, reach the right velocity. And it was able to do its boost back burn and landed gently into the ocean and then sunk to the bottom of the Gulf of Mexico. And then Starship flew up to orbit and then did its reentry maneuver, and we could see the amazing ionized gases coming off of the spacecraft as it was re-entering the Earth's atmosphere. And then the gases kept getting sort of hotter, and then you could start to see bits and pieces of debris and like wounds opening up on one of the fins that it uses to stabilize itself, and and then it just kept burning, and you could see like fires inside, and yet it continued to work, the little fin that could. And they also were able to land gently in the ocean and then sink to the bottom of the Indian Ocean. And we've heard a lot of comments from the SpaceX folks that they're going to be attempting their next launch sooner than later. So they've streamlined the FAA process so that they should be able to get their approvals a lot more quickly. And so we should see another test. This time, provisionally, the plan is to attempt to actually capture the Super Heavy booster on the launch tower,
And if
which,
they fail too profoundly, they
yes,
lose their FAA fast track because you have to have an investigation when you
yes.
destroy things.
But they're also building a second one. So if they lose one, then they've got a spare. And they're actually building two of them in Florida as well. So within the next couple of years, they're going to have four launch platforms. And then, they can just lose one every few months. Who cares? Classic SpaceX style.
And
So,
and
yeah,
it's kind of imperative in a way I never thought I'd find myself saying that they get this done quickly because they are relying on the whole Starship brand I don't know if that's quite the right word, model moving forward so they can get to development of the Starship HLS for the Artemis
Yes.
program. And if the Artemis program gets delayed, that means we have a great vacuum of funding from NASA occurring again. The way we had a vacuum when Curiosity had issues, the way we had a vacuum when JWST was delayed for a
Hmm.
decade ish. Felt like a decade. So we need Starship to get back on track so that we can have at least one test landing, which requires on orbit refueling of the still not flown at all Starship HLS before the tentative no earlier than September 26. I think it's 26. Is it September 26 or 25?
Oh, 26. Yeah.
It is okay of a human
Yeah.
accrued Starship HLS. So
Yeah.
we need this to
Yeah.
work.
And like if you were going to take this brand new skyscraper sized spacecraft and figure out a way that you were going to test it in incremental approaches to get to the point that you felt reasonably comfortable with this being a fully functional spacecraft, what kinds of test payloads would you assign to it? Where would putting humans inside of the thing show up on your Gantt chart? For me, it would be right at the very end. And yet, the only approved payload for a starship is people.
The only
Isn't that
NASA
crazy?
approved.
No, the only approved, the only confirmed Starship, and before it was also people with the Dear Moon, but that's been canceled. So
Wait,
really, the
Dear Moon was last week. When did it
yeah,
get canceled? No, oh, not Dear Moon. I'm thinking Blue Moon. Ignore me. I'm thinking
yeah,
Blue
no,
Moon.
Dear Moon, yeah, Dear
Yeah,
Moon. This is the Japanese billionaire
right,
who's going to
right.
take a bunch of people around the moon. That's been canceled. But so you would think like let's launch a telescope, let's launch bricks, let's launch whatever, water, let's try refueling, all this kind of stuff. But no, unfortunately,
But the
because
next
NASA,
generation Starlinks.
sure, but none have actually, they haven't said we're going to launch Starlinks. Like no one has put down in a calendar, here's the payload, here's the timeline. It's just the only thing that is confirmed is putting humans into this thing to land
That's
them on the moon.
That's
So
wild because SpaceX
yeah.
sent out messages to their Starlink consumers on boats saying, what translates to, for the love of God, do not be a boat in the wrong place because we're trying to get you a spacecraft that can launch the next generation Starlinks that will make your situation better.
Yeah, we know this is the plan. Like this is
Yeah,
people ask like, what are they going to use Starship for? They're going to launch
Starlinks, bigger
40,000
ones.
Starlinks. Yeah, they're going
Yeah,
to launch big, powerful Starlinks ad infinitum as they take all of the telecommunications money on planet Earth. That's the
right.
plan.
Yeah.
And so any other uses of Starship are incremental at best compared to that plan. But there is no right now. I don't, I'm surprised they could have filled the last Starship with Starlinks, but they didn't. So maybe the
Okay.
next one will have them, or they're just going to keep testing them empty. I don't know.
I don't know.
All right, we're going to take another break,
Okay.
and we're back. All right. Okay, so I've got another one for you,
Go for it.
which is that the IAU, the International Astronomy Union, has its meeting in early September. Sorry, August.
Last week of August.
Yeah, the last. No, it's August.
It's the middle 2 weeks of August.
August
I
6th.
currently have a sad because I have registration, I have a hotel, and I don't have funding to actually go.
Right, to South Africa.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm a member of the
So,
IAU.
yeah.
I sit on committees. I have sads. I have
Well, maybe you should
sads.
maybe you should talk to CosmoQuest about sending you to the IEU.
I know.
Oh,
I
right.
know.
Yeah, I'm sure So, I mean, I always say that people who live in academia live in a bit of a sort of weird fantasy land when they're
They
like,
do.
"Oh, are you going to go to this conference?" I'm like, "Of course not. I don't have $5,000 to spend to
Yeah.
fly to and stay at a hotel to go to that conference. That's
Yeah.
ridiculous." oh, I guess, yeah, maybe that is a lot of money. Yeah. So, of course. And so now you, you have to prioritize your budget, and
Yes.
keeping employees employed, keeping the servers running is more important than
Yes.
attending a
But I
conference and
can
voting
be
on whether or not.
sad.
Yes, absolutely. And what if Pluto's vote comes up again?
Yeah, that's not going to happen. But anyways, yes, IAU is in August, and then in September, moving on to somehow I'm like all spacecraft today. So, the other thing that I'm paying attention to, because again, I am deeply concerned about the Artemis program becoming the great vacuum that removes all science funding from NASA. New Glenn is going to have its first launch, hopefully late September, early October. And they need the New Glenn rocket to work so they can carry the Blue Moon lander in the future, which is what they're looking to use for Artemis 5.
Hmm.
So we are now on a race between Starship, which has many different purposes, and Starship HLS is a special model just for NASA. We are on a race between SpaceX getting Starship HLS done and human certified, and now Blue Moon riding on New Glenn, getting the new rocket certified, and getting first their Mark 1 cargo and then their Mark 2 human certified, doing their thing on the moon. So
I am not gonna hold my breath.
I
I mean, like we have been waiting 15
I
years to
know,
see
I
New
know.
Glenn. Like
Yeah.
yes, we've seen New Shepard fly, but we have just not seen anything of New Glenn. And I understand that this rocket does exist according to people out there. But I have to see this thing actually fly before I will. I'm going to pull a Pamela on this one, which is just like I await some kind of confirmation that this is even a thing, because I've wasted so much time reporting on things that Blue Origin is planning to do.
That's fair.
Yeah.
That is fair.
So I can tell you something that is going to happen, which is that we are going to cross the 2 year mark of observations from James Webb. So even though it
Yes.
did launch in around Christmas time, it it released its first science data in July of 2022. And so now we are about to cross into that 2 year mark. And last year we did a here's everything that James Webb saw in the first year of observations. And so we're working on year two. So it's a second, all the cool new science that was done with James Webb in the second year. And this is just going to be a monster. Like there's so much science that we've been reporting on that I wouldn't be surprised if our video is like an hour and a half long. It's crazy how much amazing stuff has been done. So cool pictures, quasars, farthest known galaxy. Like
Over and over again.
just today, Webb saw globular star clusters forming through a gravitational lens in a galaxy seen when the universe was only 400 million years old.
I hadn't seen that
Crazy.
yet. The
Yeah.
thing that caught my attention is like we always talk about how a fragmenting spiraling cloud should form stars that are co-aligned ish. And we hadn't been able to see it. And I was like, meh, okay, a theory that's good, that makes sense. I will teach it, probably never see it. And JWST saw it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, the Serpens main filament has order of 20 protostar outflows that appear to be aligned within plus or minus 24
Yeah.
degrees. It yeah, it's just kind of wild.
Yeah, like all of these protostars are lining up their beams with
Yeah.
each other. Yeah, crazy. What else you got?
So I have one thing that is not happening that I want to talk about.
Okay.
We still don't have first light on Rubin Observatory. And for like the past 3 seasons, I've been like, and next year, LSST is going to get its start. And
Spring
it's,
25.
yeah, yeah, not so okay with this.
I'm fine. It'll be worth it. It's gonna be worth it. Um, so there's a couple of things that I think we should just like things that happen every year that I'm
Yeah.
really excited about. So I guess well, astronomy wise, there's this new nova that's going to
Yeah.
be appearing at some point in the next couple of months. So probably by the time the hiatus is over, the nova will have appeared. And you need to know your constellations pretty well to
Yeah.
know where this it's Corona Borealis, and
Yes.
it is this like cup, looks like a cup
Yeah.
that is in between Hercules and uh Vega, in between Arcturus and Vega. And so if you know where Hercules is and you know where Bootes is, you can measure in between the two of them and you can find Corona Borealis. It's if you do watch the sky, then you're familiar with it. And then there'll be one additional star. And
Yeah.
so I'm that'll be roughly the brightness of Polaris. So
And this is something that should be visible to most of the world. This is a fairly
mm,
equatorial constellation,
yeah,
and it's really expected that this will happen before September based on
yeah,
prior eruptions of this system. It's a two-star system. You have a compact object that is nomming material off of its companion. It's anticipated to get a bit too full and go flare with light
yeah.
as a nova. It's something we haven't seen, and we're now finally going to get to see it with massive telescopes that can track how it goes back to normal afterwards.
But I think for regular people, unfortunately,
It's
it's going to
nothing.
feel underwhelming. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that only if you really knew your constellation, you'd be like, "Oh yeah, extra star there." But everybody else, can I see the nova? And I have to say, like, yeah, but first, here's how you find Corona Borealis. Check out all these stars. Here's the new one over there.
If
That's
we're
it.
lucky, it goes
Yeah.
off towards the beginning of August when hopefully everyone's going outside for the Perseids.
Mm,
Anyways, there's a first quarter moon, so the first half of the night's going to be kind of miserable with moonlight. But Perseids you can usually count on for 1 or 2 meteors a minute, and plan to go camping
yeah.
and get up before dawn.
Well, that was the thing that I wanted to talk about was the return of the Perseids and the return of the core of the Milky Way. So,
Yeah.
Perseids in early August, and the Milky Way is already making an appearance early and earlier in the evening, and that brings you all of those amazing star clusters and nebulae and just the core of our amazing galaxy. And so, as the nights get warmer in the northern hemisphere, then we get nice things to watch. The meteors, the Milky Way. It's a good time to be outside sky watching.
These are the things we're looking forward to, and to look ahead to next season. Europa Clipper finally should take off.
That's in October, though, right?
October 10th. So, like I
Yeah.
said, looking ahead to next season, I'm allowed to
Mm, mm.
occasionally get
All
excited
right.
early. Again, I'm also afraid of
You know,
things that don't leave the planet eating budgets. You've
I should be
found
encouraging this anyway. You're right. It's good. We should definitely think about things that are happening in the future. It's fun, isn't it?
no, because the reason I'm looking ahead is because I'm worried about them. Deeply, deeply worried about them.
Well, we've run out of time. We've run out of season. So, Pamela, it's been a blast for this 17th season of
Yeah.
Astronomy Cast. I hope you're going to have fun this summer, or at least get a bunch of stuff done
Yeah.
off your plate. Some summer cleaning of projects. I know I will.
Yeah.
And we'll still be in touch, but hopefully everybody, we will see all of you when we return in September. Now, do you have some final names to thank?
I do. I would like to thank the $10 a month and up patrons, Kellyanne and David Parker, Kenneth Ryan, Kim Barron, Kimberly Rake, Klimbadrov loves science, Christian Golden, Christian Magschlot, Kensaya Penflenko, Larry Zott, Laura Kettleson, Lee Harborn, Les Howard, Lou Zealand, Marco Iarasi, Mark Steven, Raznak, Masa Herleu, Matt Rucker, Matthew Horstman, Matthias Hayden, Maxim Left, MHW 1961 Supersymmetrical, Michael Hartford, Michael Purcell, Michael Regan, Michelle Cullen, Mike Heisey, Nyla, Nate Detweiler, Paul D. Disney, Paul Esposito, Paul L. Hayden, Peter, Philip Grand, Philip Walker, Planetar, Richard Drum, Robert Cordova, Robert Hunt, Robert Plasma, Ron Thorson, Reuben McCarthy, Sebra Lark, Sam Brooks and his mom, Shersum, Scott Beaver, Scott Briggs, Scott Cohn, Sean Matz, Semyon Torfason, Siggy Kemler, Simon Partson, Slug, Stephen Veit, Sterling Gray, Stephen Coffey, the Air Major, the Big Squish Squash, the Lonely Sand Person, Thomas Gazeta, Tim Garish, Time Lord Iro, Tashar Nakini, Wanderer M101, Will Hamilton, William Andrews, and Zero Chill. Thank you,
Thanks,
everyone,
everyone.
and see you next season.
Bye-bye.
And then they saved. Our show is going to be old enough to vote, and this is your reminder, everyone. You need to register to vote. Or just check that you're still everywhere. Wherever you live in the world, you should be registered to vote if you're in a country that votes.
That's probably true.
I have thoughts about voting.
Mm-hmm.
Some countries require it.
Yeah. Strange. I think it's good. I think you should.
Yeah. It should be a national holiday in any nation where there's voting.
Yeah, that's a great idea. And so you've got encouragement to take the day off, but then also go vote.
Yeah.
Okay, questions. Raj Luther asks, I'm curious if it is allowed by anyone to collect Starship and Super Heavy booster from the ocean if possible.
I mean, they're in international waters.
Yeah,
salvaged at will.
Yeah, international salvaged. Get them. Hal McKinney asks, as someone who lives in hurricane country, I'm increasingly concerned about the Boca Chico proximity to tropical storms and worse. How hardened is this facility against hurricanes?
I mean, Florida, same. They're built to EPA standards and whatever the local guidelines are. So this is why we have federal guidelines on building.
We've seen hurricanes threaten NASA facilities plenty of times in the past, and some pretty, there were a few times, like back when they had the space shuttle, they would actually roll the space shuttle back into the VAB when a hurricane
they've done
was
that
approaching.
with lots of things.
Yeah, so they're concerned about it.
Yeah.
But so far, nothing catastrophic has actually happened from a hurricane. In many cases, it's the storm surge is the big problem.
Wasn't it JWST that was at Johnson when they had flooding? What was it?
Maybe?
There was something important at Johnson when they had flooding.
Yeah.
It's gone.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's always concerns. And this is why we have building codes.
Hal McKinney also asks, where do the neutrinos that are released in solar nuclear fusion come from? Were they there all along?
The neutrinos are, in that case, bits of energy that become neutrinos.
Right.
That's the thing, is energy and mass are interchangeable. So a lot of different reactions that occur, you have atoms going in, light neutrinos, and particles coming out. Not necessarily atoms going in, but nuclei going in, and different nuclei, electrons, neutrons, and protons coming out, and positrons, depends on the reaction.
I mean, I think like the traditional idea of like when you smash an atom is that you actually like hit an atom with a hammer and you break it apart into little bits and pieces. And that's not exactly correct.
And nuclear fusion is trickstery because you literally have things coming in, and what they form is at a lower energy level than what they were previously. So if you have two things flying around loose that come together, form a lower energy state when they're together, they release energy in the process, and that energy becomes something.
Mm.
And in this case, we're looking at things like neutrinos and photons being among the somethings.
I don't have any more questions on YouTube. Do you have any questions over on Twitch?
So Ambius is asking, legally speaking, is there anything stopping any private company from fixing Hubble on their own dime? Um, Goodwill from
Yes.
NASA and not pissing off federal laws. And I
Yeah,
think
it
the
would be
Space
illegal.
Act agreement says thou shalt not molest other people's satellites.
Yeah.
And going and yoinking Hubble out of its current orbit to be held onto by your spacecraft, or like entering a parallel orbit to it and molesting it. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that would go poorly. There was talk about the Polaris Dawn mission going and boosting HST
Yeah.
and putting in new gyroscopes and things like that. And the thing you have to remember is astronauts trained for years with exact replicas of HST that they could be trained on to know how to change things.
Mhm.
The astronauts on Polaris Dawn don't have that training. And maneuvering up next to another spacecraft is about as hard a task as you can get. This is where Gemini had to practice. This is where Apollo Soyuz was a bit scary. This is where they have such special docking clamps on the ISS to make things as easy as possible. Hubble is designed to be grabbed by a Canada arm, and Crew Dragon doesn't have a Canada arm.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
Yeah,
That they can get, I mean, the concern is the volatiles, like the different little reaction thrusters on the spacecraft can throw out volatiles that can cause damage, smudging on the mirror. And so NASA said, we're more worried about damage from this than we are the improvements of that could be made to repair the gyros and raise its orbit. And with the space shuttle, they had that robotic arm, so they could fly to a point that they were far enough away that they weren't going to cause damage, and then reach over and grab it. And they just don't have that.
yeah. Okay, so Existential Squee asks, so I know how from subjective observations, when something falls into a black hole, to us it looks like the object slows down, freezes, and then slowly gets redshifted until it disappears. So do you think that means from our subjective relativity, no black hole is ever fully formed? We just experience a singularity up to a certain point, and then due to the relativistic reasons on this side of the event horizon, it's never a finished product. This is where I like to say some questions belong in the realm of philosophy and theology.
No. There is an answer to this one. So,
It
I've,
never finishes forming is the answer, but that's unsatisfactory.
well, no. So yes, what you're seeing is, from an outside perspective,
Yeah.
you are seeing a person red, stop moving and redshift against the black hole. But the black hole adds the mass from the black hole's perspective. It is adding the mass of that person to the black hole.
Right.
And what that does is that increases the size of the event horizon to encapsulate the person. And so, from the black hole's perspective, it has absolutely added the mass. The second you fall into the black hole, the second you cross the event horizon, you are part of the black hole, and the black hole's event horizon grows to accommodate you.
So
And
there's three different instances that I think fold into this question.
mhm,
There is the human being approaches event horizon, uh, and we see them cross over and light from them never gets back to us. But the reality is they just kind of redshift into oblivion
mhm,
and their mass has
but they're
joined.
gone. Yeah,
Right. So what we can say though is there is enough mass inside the event horizon that the escape velocity at the event horizon is the speed of light. What we can't say is all of the material inside that event horizon has done the black holey thing of collapsing down to a singularity, which theories
right.
say eventually happens, because that gets into messy philosophical,
Yeah.
what is time kinds of
Right. But the
conversations.
point is that when you see a person that is um, sort
Yes.
of frozen against the black hole, that does not mean that they are actually frozen against the black hole. What that means is that's just what you're seeing. What's actually happened is that they have gone into the black hole and are now, as you say, beginning the process of whatever it takes to join the singularity at the heart of the black hole.
Yeah.
But the event horizon grows to accommodate the additional mass.
Yes.
And so what feels like it should take an infinite amount of time no longer does, because the black hole has grown and turned an infinite down into a approaching infinite again. And
Yes.
so you can just keep, if you feed a star to a black hole, you will now have a much more massive black hole, a larger event horizon. You will still see the star against the black hole, but it's gone inside. So now, but it would be really interesting to sort of think about that perspective, because as you were getting absorbed by the black hole, you would see the universe accelerate around you.
Yeah. It time gets wibbly wobbly in the
Mm-hmm.
vicinity of
Yeah.
black holes. It's glorious. It leads to conversations best had at 5 a.m. when your brain is also wibbly wobbly.
Yeah. Did you have another question?
Looking. The AC is out in my basement. I feel the need to share that information.
So Lionel asks, will there be any science? Oh, Paul Lathrop asked, will there
Yeah.
be any science that comes out of the upcoming NOVA this summer?
Yes.
Totally.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So much science, because we know it's going to happen. And now there are brand new powerful telescopes that will be able to observe this thing.
And there's just like little things that we're still trying to figure out, like how long does it take a star to recover from having a nova go off? What happens during the recovery process? All these kinds of things we only get to see when different kinds of stars go novae, and we're primed to catch it at the very beginning. This is the kind of thing where if you're a member of the AAVSO, you will probably get notifications to go out and collect data. And yeah, it's cool. Other questions on your side?
Um, Arjone had a question. Um,
Oh, is JWST on standby for NOVA observations? Null Denominator asks. So there's always either director's discretionary time
yeah.
and target of opportunity time. I don't know which one will be at play, but I'm at the 98% certainty level that observations at some level or another will be taken.
So Arjone asked, is moving an EVA suit like you would on Earth, or do you have to think about orbital mechanics?
Uh,
More about being in weightlessness.
yeah, and there's also stupid little things that I always worry about, like if they get the pressurization wrong, they blow up like a balloon and suddenly can't bend their joints.
Mm-hmm.
I'm hoping they've checked all of these things in vacuum
Right.
chambers with human beings in them in the giant vacuum chambers.
But like in space, if you push away from something, you are
Mm-hmm.
also pushing that thing away into space. Now, obviously, it depends on
Mass
your mass and its mass,
discrepancies. Yeah.
but and so they find that things don't work exactly as you're expecting, especially a lot of stuff they become very accustomed to. Have you ever heard astronauts talk about how they're in
They just
space and
forget
they
that they.
they use tools and they forget about with so back on Earth
Yeah.
you let go of a wrench and that wrench is going to drop to the ground, but in space you let go of wrench will just sit there and you're like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
you put my wrench there and then do some work, wrench is still there,
Yeah.
but that doesn't work. And so a lot of the times they find themselves letting go of things accidentally and they just drop to the ground when they're on Earth.
Which is wonderful.
Yeah.
Um,
So we got a couple of minutes left. What are some interesting projects that you're going to be working on over the summer?
I am going to finish this new lunar citizen science project if it kills me to get it out the door.
Yeah.
It might. Um, this is what you discover when you go from a team of 6 computer scientists to just yourself. Um, and like I said, I'm doing this research on what are the barriers to entry for people trying to study astronomy as amateur astronomers and free choice learners. So
Hmm.
go fill out my survey. And also, there's going to be a whole lot of house cleaning and
Yeah.
stuff like that going on.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I mentioned before we got started that I'm going to be taking over a load of firewood to my father. And then I've got a ton of like planting
Yeah,
and clearing and road building and things like that planned this summer. I want to build a nice trail that I can sort of go around the outside of the property and
that's
be able to sort of
awesome.
see all the interesting changes that are happening from season to season. And we're kind of trapped in one little part of the property right now because everything's just so overgrown that
Yeah,
it's really hard to get into stuff. So I got a new weed whacker, do some brush clearing, and like I said, I've got this new side by side that it's very agile in weird terrain. So that is the plan.
that sounds absolutely amazing. I am
Yeah.
also, if the weather lets me, going to work on getting back to doing long distance bike riding.
Mm.
But just as I was like starting to get my pace back to where it belonged in the 15 miles per hour range, we got hit by a heat dome. It's
Yeah.
it's
Is
in
it
the
still there?
30s. It's like 50 to 60% humidity.
Oh.
It's just
Are you still
gross.
experiencing the heat
Oh
dome?
yeah.
Oh,
Oh
wow.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah,
So,
we're so lucky right now. It's just been very cool.
yeah. We got like a National Weather Service heat advisory in place for the next few days.
Yeah,
Yeah, it is the
that sounds
check on
scary.
your neighbors to make sure no elderly people die. It's that
Yeah, I mean,
weather.
like for people who don't have like cooling in their house
Yeah.
are just gonna roast.
Yeah, it's or don't have the money to pay for it.
Yeah,
Like our our heating and cooling can be as much as our mortgage if we air condition to the same temperature some of my friends air condition to. So we just
yeah.
like knock the temperature down into the 20s, speaking in Celsius, under 80, speaking in Fahrenheit,
Hmm.
and call it good. And
Yeah.
if you have multiple sclerosis, if you're vulnerable populations, that can
I
kill
can't
you.
even imagine how much heat that house loses. Like, because it's like a
Yes.
big old house, poorly
Yes.
insulated. Yeah, I'm sure it's
Yes.
just a nightmare.
It is. It is.
Yeah, I don't see any more questions. So why don't we wrap things up?
All right. So
Well,
I look forward to
thank you.
pictures of all of your adventures and
I
hearing
will,
about
yeah,
everything.
absolutely. Yeah. Awesome. All right. Well, thank you everybody for hanging out with us for this season. Thanks in advance to Rich and the other editors who are going to have to deal with this nonsense. Thank you to everybody who was our moderator this season. We really appreciate it. We will see all of you in 2 months.
See
Thanks,
you on
everyone.
the other